Snellville Library.
Miss
Yeah.
6:04, I'll call this work session to order. Go over the regular business meeting first. We'll have the invitation, announcements, virtual flag, ceremonial matters, municipal purchases, we have a proclamation for that. Then we have the minutes from April 13th. Is there any discussion from those minutes from the regular meeting?
No, there's a little mistake in the work session, but we can let that slide.
Then we have the February 23rd, March 9th, and April 13th. I know that there was some emails today about the February 23rd and March 9th. Give me the board on those.
I got it good.
And what about the April 13th?
Is that the one you're wrong on that?
Yep.
Pass them on.
Write that down. Correction of the work session minutes.
I'm going to invite a guest tonight. Our department reports, Ms. Ferris I see here. Ms. McElwain, I'm sure will be here. Is Mr. Cole going to be here?
Yes.
And then Mr. Tanner, do you have a report for us?
Just some budget dates for everybody. And one of those is, I had requested a May 7th work session with the department heads. Put it in my update for y'all to think about. Would you think about see what your schedule is?
I haven't checked it, but I will.
Okay.
Would that be like an evening work session? Is that what you're thinking?
Just a work session with the, usually we have our informal meetings, we meet with department heads, and then we have a first reading and a budget hearing.
On May 7th. In the evening.
May 7th.
If everybody will just send an email back if anybody has any objection. If not, I'll call a special call work session for 100%.
Yeah, it should be fun.
Then we have the alcohol ordinance. I know we received an email from Mr. Powell. Anything else on that? Any questions, any further discussion?
There's one little hitch. It is that Senate Bill 63, which is the brew pub, new brew pub statute, has not been signed by the governor. He has 40 days from the time it's sent, probably a couple more weeks. I did speak to the local senator, and he indicated that he thought it was going to be signed. The protection, we would have to go back and obviously extract some, what you see as highlighted portions in the last draft that you got were the changes that came directly off of the Senate Bill 63. The way it's worded is if the governor didn't sign that, the implementation of your ordinance would be the state law would prevail over your ordinance anyway. And so it would require in the permitting process during the interim before we extracted the highlighted language that your staff would have to monitor it very carefully with regard to brew pubs. But with that one, I guess, warning, a little bit of a warning, you could either put it off and first read it again if you wanted to be 100% in terms of getting it signed by the government before you pass the ordinance, or you could pass it subject to the governor's signature. Move it forward.
If he doesn't sign it, where would it go from there?
You'd have to go back and extract that language.
Access it, wouldn't it?
You have to extract it. And it would never become effective because your ordinance already has a provision in it that makes whatever the state provision is with regard to regulation. So,
Yeah, I mean, as long as there's safeguards and we can put that as far as what we're doing, I absolutely don't see any reason not to do it.
That would be impetus for him to sign it, because you won't want to.
Well, I
You won't
mean,
cause us any business.
yeah. Yeah, I figured they were on the radar.
Oh, I wouldn't bet on that.
We also have second reading on ZOA 1501. Mr. Powell, Jason, something?
I'll give a quick overview. Basically, this is a result of the settlement that we had with Ms. Installone on 124 anyways, they sued us over their right to have a GILA instituted or regulated loan operation in the city. So instead of going to court, there was a settlement as advised by the city attorney. And as a result of that, we came up with some new definitions that better define all law or financial institutions within the city, and this is it, basically. So in order so that doesn't happen again, we have very specific definitions, and they won't be categorized as a pawnbroker, although they will be subject to some distance requirements. This is the second reading on this. I went through planning commission. 6-0.
Just to add a little bit to that, the problem was you had a definition called loan company, and it was not really well defined, and so they were taking advantage of that as a principal permitted use under VG. And that's where the battle came from in that court case that was resolved. The new ordinance incorporates for everybody in the industrial loan area that they have to be permitted through the state, through the insurance commissioner's office. It does give standards to where they have to not store inventory or repossessed items outside. It puts it in a VG kind of class description so that it doesn't intrude into adjacent residential properties, which in that application was the problem. It sets it up where you don't have multiple lenders, where they don't put 4 or 5 offices and really crowd an environment from a planning and zoning standpoint.
Let's stop it for a minute. Can we maybe ask them if they can clean this area when we're done? It's a little distracting out here.
And then it carved up some areas like finance company and really gave it a precise definition. It gave the loan office the GILA and then put the restrictions in that area. And so I didn't want to take credit because it was really well drafted by your staff. And we've run it through the planning commission and it does do exactly what y'all asked us to do. And it's got some great definitions that I think puts you ahead of most people in this area.
Questions? Do we have the bid for janitorial services?
We accepted bids on the 16th of April. We had 3 qualified bidders. As you can see here, the lowest and, in our opinion, most qualified is Modern Maintenance at a price of $29,796. In talking to Lisa about the senior center, we've been able to take that amount of cleaning in-house. So we are recommending that a contract or an agreement be approved and for the mayor to sign it when we get one that's reviewed by the city attorney in the amount of $23,916 a year.
Is that who's here today?
Yes.
And that 29 was including the senior center? That's why it's
Yes.
So what's the amount?
23,916 a year, which is about $3,500 less than we were paying.
But we were paying before for the senior center
For 3.
and
Correct.
so it's less covered.
Yep. Very good company with good references. We'll tell them to come after the meeting.
Any questions? Okay. And then Snellville First Baptist has asked to use this stage. Does anybody have any questions about that?
The only question I had on Butch, in the area where it's references Craig Barton being the one that's going to open it.
He would not, he's on duty, so he would not, they wouldn't have to pay him.
Okay, so that 0 is a correct amount.
Yes, right. It's, I think it's a Wednesday or a Thursday.
Okay. So it must be during the day.
Brings us to our work session agenda, Mr. Powell.
The only thing I would add at this point is the record ordinance that we shared with you today. It was one that's been reviewed by the chief of police and really incorporated a number of his staff's recommendations. It really creates two things. It regulates records generally. It also defines a permitting procedure when you are a record service that is approved by the city to actually handle calls for the police department. And so there's a two-stage grouping. You have to be equipped for the grouping that you fall into, and they're based on the size of the vehicles that you're towing. And so we've incorporated a number of standards for operating and some conflicts of interest that were really done to deal with situations that y'all encountered in the past, and put the chief of police a lot of jurisdiction and authority to oversee that. It's a permit process now, so it's like an alcohol license. You're not entitled to it. You get blessed with it, and if you don't perform according to the standards of the ordinance, then it can be taken away from you without any vested rights. So, y'all been very generous the way the chief has dealt with this. It's got a radius restriction, which requires a record service to be available at a certain amount of time to the city. It's not restricted to just record services that operate or have their principal office in the city, but there's a 10-mile limit, which is the timing issue for getting records here and meeting those calls. And with that, y'all been very generous to open it up to people who are qualified and be very generous in the folks on a rotating call basis. And it's not mandatory that it be dealt with that way, but that's the way it's been dealt with in the past. So it does permit that broad jurisdiction. It also permits a more restricted process if the chief thought things were better with a tighter regulation. It's really his, in some ways, how he applies those permitting processes. He can raise those standards and limit the number of people that actually are getting calls from the city. So,
two questions about it. Number one, does it open the door to us rehashing old problems with new applications from people we've had problems with in the past?
Well, most of the new restrictions that are in there would eliminate those problems that we've had in the past.
So there's no fear there? The other question is, how will it adversely affect anybody that's performing for the city at this point?
I don't really see that at all. The one thing that it does do that the other one did not do is that we can establish a panel of record drivers to look at when there's an exorbitant fee charge, which we could never do before, and there are mechanisms to deal with it if that occurs. Also the conflicts and the other things. So basically, we have a whole lot more ability to handle the problems that we had before that we don't have
Right now.
We now do.
And in the permitting process, is there anticipated that there will be a fee to get the permit?
There's no fee that's associated with it. There's just conditions that are associated with it. They have to meet like certain size vehicles, certain equipment they have to carry, certain numbers, certain type of ability to answer the phone, and those kinds of things.
You could do that. You could, we're not at even the first three. This is just your first look at it.
Right.
I hate to put things in your agenda as though it's coming up for first read when y'all have not looked at it. And it's not your handiwork. I don't want anybody to believe that this is something that council initiated until they get a chance to review it and edit it. So it's free. You could add that in. The good thing about not having it in is whatever you put in, it gets passed through to your citizens. So so it doesn't have a fee associated with it at this point, but it can be added.
I have a few questions and some comments. If you give me a few minutes. The original report that the chief wrote, detailed, extended. Are we going to change that and make that the handbook that we talked about that would be given to the person that's permitting? Has any thought gone into that, or is that just, you don't want to do it?
Okay,
mean, I'm
I
just-
can't
hear you.
Here's the question, and it has to do with, there was a lot more information originally drafted from the police department, and we didn't incorporate it in this document because it's already state and federal law. I mean, we were incorporating some federal standards. And so what we talked about doing was taking some of those standards that were the most important, and when you do the permitting process, incorporate those into a booklet that the police department would hand out. And I think that's still,
Still gonna do that. Okay, page 3, small item, is it 2 rotations off list, 5 rotations off list, 10 rotations off list?
it is.
Okay, bottom of the page, H, the conflict with the services required by this ordinance, including service repair or body shop, shall be investigated by the chief of police or their designee. Did this involve is the charges in here that we were upset about previously, does that paragraph incorporate, I read this from front to back, and I know that that charge part is in the end, but they were over. I know you know where I'm going.
Yeah, it's not in this section, but it is in the section where we can review, where the complaints come in, then we
Yes.
set up that panel to review.
Okay. Page 4, that second paragraph, it says all permits, and then it says granting of a license. We're going back and forth, permit, license, even in D, and in the same paragraph, it's a license fee, a permit fee. Is there a difference in between those, or should it be all considered permit or all considered license?
It should be, but we should make those consistent terms. So we will do that.
In C, the applicant shall sign a release, and there's a criminal background check from the Georgia Crime Information Center, GCIC.
Which C are you looking at?
Page 5, top C.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Do you know if the Department of Driver Services runs an NCIC report when they give it to them before it comes to us?
I don't know that they do. They may.
Is it something we need to look at, or is it not a big deal?
Well, we're gonna run one on them anyway.
An NCIC? Okay, good with that. Who's the designee right now to do this?
Charles.
Charles, okay. Page 7, E, bottom of the page. Every record service shall annually provide the city manager with a copy of his insurance. Why did we pick the city manager? Is that the norm, or why not the police chief or the designee?
Well, I mean, we can, they just usually file them with their business license and occupational license, but we don't have all those, so I guess, I mean, it doesn't matter.
The reason to do that is that's where your claims are gonna come. That's where your insurance is adjusted through, and your claims will come there. And so if we wanted to add "and the chief," that, I mean, we could do that, but I
I
would
just wondered
definitely.
Well, we're gonna
The
expect it
reasoning.
to make sure they have it.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he just gets the copy on file. Okay. I think that was the last one. Nope. A minor grammatical on page 11, D. Just needs to be a little bit smoother. Or fenced lot or qualified. Just doesn't read smooth. I understand what it's saying, but not an issue. And thank you very much for getting this together. I mean, this is just a great surprise to get this today.
Okay.
I'm glad to see it. Thank you, Chief and staff, for working on it. Didn't take as long as we thought it was going to take. Appreciate it.
So,
That's it.
discussion of new insurance policies, Mr. Sanders.
I'm not sure what this entails. We don't have any new insurance policies. What we did was have I guess a departmental-wide meeting with an option down the road. We're starting early this year. We talked to these folks last year, And basically, they offer a hybrid self-insured plan where you have a guaranteed maximum cost and a chance to control costs internally where they've had good results where the plan has been put in place. That's mostly the West Coast. City of Ackworth does it here. They saved about 25% on their premiums. You'll see when we go over the budget this year, insurance costs last year went up 14 or 15%. So we're looking at all our options to see what's out there.
When is our insurance up? When
December 1st. And we'll keep you informed on that.
Update on concrete improvements, Mr. Kidd?
Mayor and council, we asked Michael Kidd, Root Design, to join the meeting tonight just to give you an update on where the process is and what the current calendar is. So, Michael, if you would.
And they all have a copy of the schedule?
I did not put this schedule in front of me. I apologize. I put everything else in front of me.
Is this the schedule?
That's the schedule right there, yes.
Did
It wasn't.
you had emailed
I
it?
think I emailed it, yeah.
I'll just run through this briefly, give everybody an update. The first order of business is to finish the construction documents for the area across the street behind the Veterans Memorial Fountain. We're incorporating some of the work across the street to expand the scope of the project, make it a little bit bigger of a construction project. So we're working right now to finish those documents. We still have a few things to coordinate with the city to finalize that. We've also been coordinating with Eric and Butch to purchase some of the specialty items, what we're calling specialty items for the project, which primarily include the items for the sundial and the compass rose. We have a custom manhole cover that goes in the center of the sundial with the city logo on it. That also includes the cut letters that will be embedded in the concrete for the compass rose, as well as the numbers for the sundial. And then also a couple tree grates, a drinking fountain, and a trash can.
And lettering for the main sign.
Okay. So those are all going to be purchased directly by the city, which will save some money, save some time, get those materials already here so that they're ready to go when the contractor's on board.
So we've already approved those purchases. Do you know when they're going to be made?
They're in the process of being made.
So what does that mean? They've been ordered,
That
or?
means they're being ordered. There's some that we've got prices for, they're being ordered. They will all be ordered probably by mid-May and we'll be in the delivery process.
Okay.
They will be here before probably July or August.
Yeah, probably the longest lead time for those might be 8 weeks. So if we get them ordered in the next month or so, we'll have those in plenty of time for the actual project. So after that, in July, we'll be looking to prepare the bid documents, which is really just revising those to incorporate the area across the street, so that we can get ready to bid the project in August. We'd like to have it advertised for at least 3 weeks. When we're preparing those documents in July, we'll set a date to get the ad in the paper. We'll establish how long that's going to run. And then once the bids come in, we award the project. It'll take another couple weeks to execute the contract for the contractor to get their bids, or their bonds rather, and all their paperwork, get it to the city attorney to review, make sure everything is buttoned up for that. Then the ultimate goal would be to start construction in September. And the plan would be to start the contractor across the street behind the fountain to get that area going, get the contractor on board, get all the materials ordered so that all that is in place. They can start working on that area while we're still holding events in the town green so that doesn't really hold us up. That would go through November so that in December we can begin construction on the town green itself.
and maximize the amount of time that we have for the contractor to work to do that installation for the town green. That's going to take several months through the winter, and the ultimate goal would be for groundbreaking in May, keeping in mind that we have to have, the sod needs to be down for at least 4 weeks, and it needs to be growing during that time to get rooted in and established before we have all this tremendous traffic on it. Otherwise, you'll just be fighting it all the time. I mean, if we can get a good healthy stand of sod in the spring, that's going to help you as you move forward with the town green. There's always going to be trouble spots, just with the amount of traffic that you have. There's no good solid 100% solution for that. You're always going to have some trouble spots with the turf. But we really need it to be down for at least 4 weeks to get established before we have those major events start. So that's the updated schedule. If anybody has any questions?
The only question, it's come up that there's some folks would be interested in adding what's called a little library, a little free library to the town green area. It would be a permanent structure. So at some point, I want to give you a call and kind of talk to you and discuss how that, can fit into this plan. One of the Cub Scouts, one of the Boy Scouts doing his Eagle Project, just to make it an Eagle Project for the city. So that's the only thing.
It's really small.
Yeah, it's really small
Yeah,
and
it's
sit
not-
on the post. I mean, it's not, intrusive. And we may be able to make it portable after he completes it and then make it permanent after we're done. But just wanted to give you a heads up that it needs to
Find a home?
find a home somewhere on,
Okay.
somewhere, That's what we need to talk about. I mean,
That or maybe even the side of City Hall.
Yeah, I mean, so we just need to
Because there's
discuss
more
what it
regular
really-
traffic here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of a destination where people come to an event, so.
But anyway, it's on the horizon for to be considered. So.
And then, I know we talked about this, about the placement of the Christmas tree. Were we talking about putting that right beside City Hall here for this year? Right outside here, yeah. The direction for this year, so
Yeah,
that
the old
you
location.
can go ahead and start
Yeah, just to
construction.
give us as much time.
Yeah,
Now, we would allow the tree lighting and everything to occur, and then just right after that, give the contractor permission to be on the green and start the construction without the tree being over there. In other words, do the tree lighting here and everything, but not have construction started over there when that event occurs.
so that we can still use the green for the tents and things and just not have the tree up.
And then as soon as the tree lighting and that is all over, then we give the contractor access to the green and everybody else is done until we are.
That works.
And just a final thought, Mayor, if I may add two things. There are two art pieces that are designed into the labyrinth. One of them is a public art piece that is closer up to the senior center. We are in good constant in communication with the Art Commission about that piece and what it might entail in its placement. And the second thing to mention is the same as going on with the actual labyrinth itself. We are in good contact and communication with Judy and the folks that are interested in that and what they may do. And with very small tweaks, depending upon where they are, as we start into the bidding and construction process, we will tweak what they're ready to do in the plan. So, for example, if they tell us in August that the public art that was going to go by the senior center is just something that's not going to happen now, we may also pull the pedestal for that out of the bid, just so we don't have an empty pad sitting there for something to happen. I don't think that'll happen with the labyrinth. I think for the labyrinth, it'll be more of a discussion of what the actual finish is. If they are able to raise enough money for pavers, then we'll work with them to plan that. If they can't raise enough money, there is also the opportunity to do a stencil on there. And so then we may kind of horse trade some of those costs of that one pad for the other and actually put in a good cement pad for them, because we want to be able to control what the final product is to some degree, and then stencil it so it gets done. So just know on those two pieces, there are some moving parts. We are paying attention to them, and it's been very good to work with the Art Commission on those two things. It's been a good process.
And do we know how much the additional landscaping and the benches and the arbor is gonna cost?
We did a budget for them around, I don't remember, I do miss to say a
I
number.
think it was around 50.
50,000, and that's something the city's gonna pay for?
That's what my understanding is, that was going to be added to the project if that changes.
Will that come out of SPOS funds?
We have $595,000 budgeted in SPOS
But not for this project.
for the
That's for Parks and Rec.
park as a whole.
Thank you. Update on the election committee. Have they gone to training? What's the status of the election committee?
Ms. Richardson has, Ms. Schultz and Mr. Byrne took all their classes online except for the one mandatory in-person class, the half-day class that Kennesaw State puts on. They completed that last Wednesday, I believe, and are just waiting on their official credentials. And then I have told Ms. Richardson and the two of them that it would be time to get together there and look at a calendar and go to work.
So they have completed the training. And so we need to get an intergovernmental agreement with the county in order to get their equipment. We usually have that in place by now, so. And then
I
we
think it would behoove the council to have in hand all those certifications from all three members of that committee. Just be something we should have that you should have with test for, make sure everything's up front so we don't have any problems after.
And I think the Secretary of State's office probably is doing that right now. So,
For all of them.
And so I know that Ms. Ford has left the Secretary of State's office. Have we had contact with them about how we get the actual committee certified?
yes. Yeah.
And so
They've
when
never
we-
come across a,
Yeah, I know. And so when do we think we'll get that from them?
well, as long as the individuals are.
Are you sure about that?
That's, that was my understanding from Ms. Walters, and I'm going on that.
If you could just keep us informed too. I mean, I would think our next step is, now everybody's passed everything and certified, just waiting on paperwork, but I'd like to see a meeting of the committee, and I'm assuming maybe Tony and Butch together to sit down and discuss roles and responsibilities and how things are gonna move forward, so everybody's on the same page. And I don't think the council necessarily needs to be there, it's the elections, we don't need to be involved in that, but if you could just provide us with updates that that committee meeting took place and that, you know, everything's worked out, so that we know that things are progressing as they should.
Any questions? LCR project.
We are, I mean, the utilities are working underground. They're hopefully within a week or two of being done. You can see the landscaping is starting, which is basically the last part before the poles come down, the wooden poles and the wires in the air. I mean, we're still on track for being done prior to the beach party.
Originally, they were gonna be done by the beginning of May, so.
Well, it's, when you deal with AT&T, it's not the easiest thing to do. I've tried to keep you updated on that in my weekly update, and all we can do is just push and push. So they're usually the holdup.
So this Saturday is the parade. What is going to be happening this week that will possibly, as far as sidewalk clearance for people to sit?
Everything will just be is cleaned up, and the areas that we need to keep people out of will just be come back.
And what
The
about?
stage will go where the stage goes.
I've had a few complaints. What about the gap? I think there's a gap in the sidewalk on Wisteria where it just stops. I'm assuming that's so they can bury something there and then they're gonna go back and fill in the sidewalk.
All the gaps will be filled.
And, there on Oak where it kind of jets out, there by.
With the
I think
parallel
right by the-
parking?
Yeah, right by the post office. That's just the way it's gonna be.
Well, that's part of the design. Now, one thing you have to remember, I mean, obviously, everything will be paved, and it will not be painted. It will be thermoplastic lining, which will be much brighter, much clearer, and everything will be cleaned up. So it's difficult to tell during the construction. We've had, I know there's been a discussion on Facebook about the traffic and whatnot, and you can see there are a couple of curbs that have been hit. But if people would just be a little careful and watch, we've really been pretty fortunate. We haven't, Chief, I don't know of any accidents that have occurred during the project, and it's just one of those things. It's construction. It's a change. People will have to get used to the flow of traffic. It's not going to be 3 lanes anymore. It's going to be 2 because of the extra parking. Speaking of parking, once we got the agreement done with Mr. Brown, that's a very nice parking area that we're going to be able to utilize. I wish it could have been asphalt. We could have saved $50,000 probably. But that's dealing with Mr. Brown. So.
This is existing parking lot?
Just beside that little fence.
Yeah, it was, yeah,
It'll be there forever, but, it's just a little overkill.
What about, was there ever, any of the designs, did it ever go to the end of both streets?
Not that I saw. I don't know what discussions you had. We just.
No, it never does.
Plans, I guess. It's because of the expense of the utilities, what did they just say? And then when you got into the right of way, and you saw the cost of the right of way, I know the roundabouts, there was some value engineering that took place. So that just, I guess just to meet the budget and the dollars available.
But do you know at this point how much of Wisteria is going to get repaved? Will it get paved down past the police department, like into the cemetery?
The contract obviously is just for the construction side.
Right.
We
But I'm
need
just
to talk-
wondering how far down by the police department that goes. If you could check to see if that'll take care of all of those spots that were dug up and paved and
Oh, it
redug up.
definitely will there. It will go, the end of the sidewalk is down by the office complex.
Right. So
And
it'll be down there.
it will go at least that far.
Okay.
To try to save some money, we came back 1 pole, but the paving will go that far.
Okay.
So, and we're gonna work with the county on seeing how we can tie it all in.
Bids for the network and Wi-Fi.
I'm just gonna give you, all I can tell you is, we're working on it. This is a report from one of the contractors, one of the vendors, which basically, it shows you that we will have good coverage, we'll have a strong signal, but there are still a lot of questions. I can't, when you got 3 vendors that we're working with, and I'm not ready to give you a recommendation. It is it's not the easiest thing to work on. When everybody is trying to deal with putting their best proposal together, everybody does something better than the other one. And I think we have the best and most qualified. It's not the cheapest, it's not the most expensive, it's the vendor in the middle. But we still have to make sure that we've got, one thing is a warranty that we don't have answers yet on, and just some questions that they need to answer.
So we've been working on this for 7 months.
Well,
That to me is not acceptable. I mean, you know, we keep saying other things have taken priority, other things have taken priority. So tell me what we need to get this done at the next meeting. You keep saying, we'll have it done the next meeting, we'll have it done the next meeting, and that's not happening. So tell me what you need to get it done.
I'm gonna meet, Eric and I are gonna meet back with all 3 of these vendors. And we'll try to get all our questions answered and bring you a recommendation.
You said that 2 weeks ago at our last meeting, or 3 weeks ago at our last meeting, so
A lot of things are happening, so,
tell me what has to happen to get this done.
I need to have those meetings back with the individual
Have you
vendors.
scheduled those meetings?
No, I have not. It'll have to be next week, and hopefully, I'll give you an update. If we have the work session on the 7th, I'll be glad to give you an update then, and make a recommendation on the 11th of May.
Mr. Powell, can we see the bids without a recommendation being made?
You mean,
Can council see the documents, or do we have to wait until there's a recommendation made?
it really depends on how the process you're using for selecting. If it were a bid process that was a low bid, or just a straight up bid process, then that could come out. But if it's a RFP or RFQ kind of design, then you do it according to the way you set up.
It's just quotes, it was informal
Yeah, this has
quotes.
been a negotiation. There was no way to,
Put together an RFP.
no way to put together an RFP where we could get apples to apples.
Because one of my questions and concerns, and I'm not sure that you can get an answer to this, is the thing that bothers me with Wi-Fi and providing Wi-Fi for a big outside area is that by the time you put some hardware out, a couple of months down the road, it's going to be no good. You know, that technology changes so quickly, new phones come out, and then all of a sudden, can they give you any kind of warranties that the equipment will continue to be upgraded as warranted, or?
That's one thing that we're trying to make sure they all can provide the same thing. And it is just, it's like pulling teeth together.
When we met in October, we weren't even discussing Wi-Fi for an outside area. We were talking about updating the server here in City Hall and getting Wi-Fi access for City Hall. So I think somehow
We
things,
got that though.
only for, not for the public, only, we
Yeah,
have,
but that's just a matter, that's a matter of choice, not a matter of equipment.
well, it's become a matter of equipment. So
I
I'd
don't
like to
believe
see.
it's a matter, if Starbucks can do it, we can do it.
When you think so, but I would like to see what we have, because I think for some reason this has gotten off track. I don't know if staff is going down the same path that maybe we're even thinking of. I'd like to see whatever documents you have, so that at least we can have an intelligent conversation of what direction we want to take it, because right now we just keep putting it off, and I'm not sure
Okay.
what's happened to this, or what direction
Is
we're
there an
going.
overlap between inside and outside?
What's that?
Is there gonna be an overlap between inside and outside, or are we gonna rush to get it done inside and then find out that there's a conflict, or we could have incorporated it as under one contract with an inside and an outside, or?
That's what we're trying to do, and I thought we wanted outside.
I mean, ideally, yes, but at this point in time, what we started back in October was for security purposes, having a backup server for the coop, or I don't remember what it's called, and then having Wi-Fi so that when Joe Smith comes in for a council meeting, he can access his iPad or whatever. Now, I mean, ideally, but, I mean, that's a whole different ballgame as the town green, because that's a lot more money and a lot more hardware we're talking about.
And honestly, I don't know why you're not even supplying from this. Why? What's our goal?
Well, I mean, cities, like, I was just up in Cartersville, and they have it, their DDA got a grant for it to be outside, and it's nice. There's a parking lot you can go and sit in, and it's nice, it's a nice resource that they have up there. I gave Mr. Sanders the information for, I can't remember the company's name, Mr. Greason, to see if that's something, but at this point, we need to get at least the inside. I mean, if that's gonna take a while, we at least need to get the inside done.
What does City Hall guest? I go in there and I turn on my phone, I get CH guest.
You have to have the pass key to get them.
So it's really not yet.
It's not publicly available.
It's very difficult to get that. So if you have it,
Hang on to it.
very special. Yeah, I wasn't even able to watch it get entered.
I have technology.
I really
I'll
don't
be
think,
glad.
I don't think that access, public access inside City Hall is expensive or difficult. I think it's just a matter of, if you don't block the servers, then you get a separate line with a separate modem, and you call it whatever you want to call it, and you don't have to have access to it. That's all there is to it.
I will give you exactly what we're looking at right now, and I will line up those needs.
But again, I don't think we need to worry about outside, I think we need to worry about inside City Hall at this point.
I even have a spare modem or two on you.
They're here for you.
Wireless,
But they're probably old, that's why they're spares.
they still work.
Better what we got here right now.
They only work with an iPhone 3. We're not gonna talk about that.
Now I was looking for.
All right, update on service provider contract. We were gonna get dates on the list you gave us at the
Yeah,
last
and
meeting.
I'm still pulling those contracts. I don't have that, I don't have the dates for you, the end dates of those contracts yet.
Tables at the pop-up market.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up for discussion with council. I'll let Eric explain what the banquet is, and then I'm just asking if there's any desire for council to purchase one or two of the tables, and I'm just pretty sure.
As the planning committee for the market has been working through diligently and actually to my comment quite excitingly what's happening on that Saturday, May 16th, the suggestion came up that we do a kind of visioning celebration to cap the market so that we could have a number of people gathered at one point to share the vision of the market and why the market was there in the first place and where it would go from there in the future. Just to kind of reinforce and support the town center plan that we've had to this point. Just an opportunity to keep pushing the vision forward on that. So we have planned, we are in the middle, hopefully we're in the middle late stages of planning that. Nona Johnson, who was the season 8 winner of Hell's Kitchen, has agreed to be a celebrity chef for that event. We will have 14 tables in a 40 by 40 tent behind the market. Those people that have purchased a table will have private access to the market from 4:30 to 5:30, and then Nona will fix some dinner, and then there will be this opportunity as well for a visioning session to be shared with them about what's going to go forward from that point. So the tables have been determined to be $200 a piece. They will seat 6. The seats can also be bought individually at $40. There's a link for that on the website. And several organizations at this point of the city have come forward and are buying a table to have to be able to invite certain key individuals so that they hear the message. So the URA, the DDA staff, the Art Council is talking about a table. South Gwinnett is talking about purchasing a table as well, so that we can have the people at that session that will help the town center to continue to move forward in this vision. So that's kind of the purpose. Did I get it all covered for you?
Yeah, but my angle on it is that I think it may be a good opportunity for the council to buy 2 of those tables, not for the council, but for the council to invite people who would help us develop our town center to be at that meeting, and to make sure that, we get those people in the room and at that table so they hear that presentation. Not necessarily for council members to sit there, but for developers, people, perhaps county commissioners, people that we're going to need to help us, maybe our state senator, the people we're going to need to help us develop that town center. So I think for a $400 investment on the city's part, if we can get the right people there, then I think it's money well spent.
Where does the money go?
Most of the money will go to cover the expenses of the food itself and the event. There will be a small donation out of that as well to go to the Snellville Community Garden and the Arts Commission.
And so does that not become an issue of the city giving money?
Good, yeah, to charitable institutions, you have to be specially authorized in order to do that.
I said we don't give any money to the charities. That, my deal is that we have the right people at that table to hear that plan so that, we see if we can get some buy-in from somebody. That's my whole point.
And I think those can be reconciled with each other if you're entertaining folks, for that purpose. I think that's perfectly authorized, but you need to carve out a place where it's not a charitable contribution.
We could do that.
And so who actually, we write a check, who does the check go to? Is there some type of organization that, I know there's a committee, but how?
PDA, right?
The checks the checks could go to the DDA because it was requested that we set up an online ability for people to pay. We partnered with the Greater Eastside Chamber and they can set up the online payment for us, but the payment could be made straight to the DDA.
That's what we want to make.
Yeah, I think you would. And most of the checks in that are being made straight. That's just a convenience thing that was set up for those that want to come in, basically to buy the $40 plate seats for the individual community members. Although we did have somebody today just in the community buy a table.
So there's no objection. I'd like to put that on the amended agenda tonight to add that, or do you want to wait, put it on next week? We don't have enough time. No, we don't have enough time. Well, no, we don't have to. We
The
can
next
put it on
council session
Next council session.
prior to the May.
So if there's no objection, I'll put it on the next plastic. The citizen could put it on the public hearing at the commission.
Yeah, that would be May 11th.
Good, because I thought we were purchasing tables.
You want me to snag it? I didn't.
There's no, there's just,
Not sure where we were going to store them.
Community room.
there's no substitute for education.
That's true.
No relief.
That's true.
It's no relief.
That's true.
Discussion on giveaways for Snellville Days. I put this on a work session before. I didn't think there was an objection. I emailed out some information. I know Councilman Manuel, Councilman Howard raised an objection to it. In the past, we've given away label pens, candy, those brick squeeze things. It's the council's tent, so if we don't want to have anything there to give away to people, that's fine. But if we do, we need to decide so that we can get that ordered before this weekend. I think the Snellville Police Department gives away usually like little frisbee type things. The park has usually gadgets they give away. So it's completely up to y'all.
I'm still of the opinion we just don't need to do it.
I just see people pick up stuff, look at it, and put it in their bag, and then take it to the trash receptacle. I don't have a problem with it, but this candy, promoting tooth decay.
So you're the tooth fairy now?
Yeah. You'll find a dollar bill under your pillow tonight.
Well, and I think we talked about before, in the past, I think Ms. Arnold last year ordered pens, ink pens. We talked about magnets. I can't remember what else was on the coasters thing.
Coasters.
I just don't see it.
Where does that money come from?
The miscellaneous budget, it's about like $400, $500, depends on how many we order.
I mean, honestly, I don't care.
I don't have any objections, whatever you want.
I'd rather put that $400 toward inside Wi-Fi.
Can buy my mobile.
Pay for your 2 tables.
That would buy 2 tables, yeah. But I think it would be more productive. The majority of you want to do it. That's-
I don't care what we do. I don't remember giving anything away.
I don't remember giving pens away last year.
Okay. It's 7:29.
Sharing.
Where